Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. It's 7:01 or 7:02, and welcome to the November 3rd School Committee meeting. First, I'd like to begin the meeting with open public comment. And as we have for the past 2 or 3 months or more, just want to list the 2 comments, the community inbox submissions that came in. We had one from Kevin Riley of 6 Highland Circle on the 13th of October, and one from Lori LaValle, 97 South Street, on the 23rd of October. The only 2 submissions we had between our last meeting and today. So thank you for those submissions. Next, 7:05, approval of minutes.
I did not have any changes to the minutes from the October 6th meeting.
Thank you. I did not either. And actually, before we go for that, I just wanted to welcome Michelle. I see, Michelle, you're on camera there, so I thank you for zooming in. And I do think Brent is on his way too, but he's just not here yet. So thanks for jumping on board. So anyone want to move the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of October 6, 2020.
Thank you, Tina.
Second.
Second by Rob. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing and seeing none, all in favor to approve the minutes? 4-0, thank you, Michelle. Next, moving right along, we have our teaching and learning highlight, which I believe is an update and discussion and presentation about our professional day today.
So usually with our teaching and learning highlights, we'll have teachers or students. And in this case, since it was our professional learning professional day, thought that the teaching and learning highlight, it was really appropriate to showcase all that took place while teachers were in school and students were not. And the Professional Development Committee is led by Dr. Mello, and that committee is the one who really gets all of the input from the staff as far as professional development needs, and then at the same time continuing to focus on our own district goals and what our needs are, because we know that professional development is not something that takes place in one day and is done. It's something that takes many years, actually, depending on what the focus is. And obviously, we're in a different time, and we can't bring large groups of people together, so professional development looks different. And what we have to share with you this evening is a video that was put together. It's very brief. It's about 3.5 minutes or so. And it's to give you an overview of what today looked like for our staff and what our focus was. It was put together by Dan Ambrosio, who's the Middle School Technology Integration Specialist, along with our K-8 curriculum directors, Noelle Hendrickson and Karen McKinnon. And it's the work of many. So they'll explain it in the video, and then I'll be happy to answer any more specific questions afterwards.
The PD committee wanted to plan a day of professional development that met the needs of all teachers and staff members, especially in light of this unique school year. The committee sent out a comprehensive survey to staff asking them to prioritize their needs for this day. After gathering that data, we developed offerings ranging from technology trainings to grade level collaboration time to self-care sessions to sessions involving cultural competency. To give staff choice and agency in their professional learning, we used SCED to organize the PD offerings. As you can see, all sessions are clearly organized by time slot and color-coded to clearly show each target audience. By building choice into this PD day, we were able to tailor the professional learning to meet the needs of our staff as we build capacity in this unique and challenging school year.
As previously stated, the survey data resoundingly showed that our Foxborough public educators were asking for, above all else, collaboration and planning time to continue to prepare for hybrid and remote learning scenarios. Teachers were also looking for resources to support their students' social-emotional learning and cultural proficiency needs, tips on balancing demands during COVID-19, and support in mastering various tech tools. With the changing demands on teachers, their evolving needs, and the importance of considering our staff's social and emotional well-being, the day was broken into 2 major blocks. The must-do morning session involved collaboration and planning time amongst content and grade level teams, or tech-based training for our support staff. The afternoon block of the day involved choice-based sessions designed to meet the diverse needs of our educators. Staff had the opportunity to continue their work from their morning planning sessions or choose alternative routes of study, such as embracing cultural competencies and social justice issues in our daily teaching practices, self-care for teachers during the time of COVID-19, or office hours with our tech integration specialist, where staff could receive direct support from our resident experts.
We were thrilled to have Angela Myers to the district as our keynote speaker for our Professional Development Day today. Angela is someone I have admired and followed for over a decade.
You have a responsibility to use your genius to change the world. You were born to make an impact, not a little impact, but an epic impact.
When is the last time you ran to work? Like, could burst inside, you couldn't wait to get to work.
This is a DNA thing. We were created for significance. Human beings need to know they matter.
So that's just a snapshot. We all started off with Angela Myers as the keynote speaker this morning, and really the big takeaways. We know, particularly in this time period, the social emotional learning of our students, and then when we think about mental health, not just of our students, but of our staff too, how important it is to stop and to remind ourselves about things that are so critically important, and something as simple as everyone matters. The amount of time of listening and how you listen to students, saying their names when they're entering your classroom. So she was really enthusiastic to start the day off, and then we had the choice sessions that was explained. And those are really focusing on areas like when we had Dr. Khalees Warnham starting with cultural competency in the last 2 years in our work that we've been doing with diversity and inclusion. That continued. When we think about the technology choices, where teachers are with needing particular support in areas, whether it was with teams and assignments in teams or video conferencing, or how to work within our FPS online classroom, and really meeting and differentiating the needs between teachers. And then when it comes to social justice and different workshops to continue our focus areas. So they had must-dos and they had may-dos throughout the day. And it spoke to providing choice, which we know is really important to be able to meet needs, but at the same time continue forward with our district initiatives. So it was a good day, and it was a successful day.
Any questions from the committee members? Tina?
Not really a question, it's just it's a observation that the, so much of this is taught by our own staff, and it's so impressive, and just the variety and the options for our teachers are vast. It's very impressive when you see it all laid out like this, and the way it's color-coded in the video, and the breakdown is just, it's impressive, yeah. Just to see it all put together in one place is really something, and I know our teachers had a great day of learning today, and our students benefit from that. So thank you for all your efforts on that.
I'm glad you
and thank
pointed
you to
that
Allison.
out, because that has definitely been something that we've been striving for, because we know that we have so many experts and our colleagues around us, and teachers can be really comfortable in front of students, but maybe not necessarily in front of their colleagues. For them to take that risk, and where we're encouraging them to do that, because they have so much to share and to give, and that we can learn from each other, and we've had more and more of that in the last 5 years.
I can see that, actually. I mean, I've seen quite a few of these professional development day summaries just like this, and you can see the growth of our staff in their own teaching of each other, and it's really a wonderful thing to see.
Dr. Brodas, were any of the sessions recorded, so if people had to make a choice, they could?
Yes, some of the modules that were there, they can go back and watch them at any time, because they may have been like, oh, I really need to work with my department and collaborating on hybrid, but I want to go back and watch that. So they can definitely do that. So that's a really good point, too.
Right.
That's excellent. And the self-care portions of it were also really wonderful, because we know this is very important during this incredibly stressful time for our staff and for all of us, actually. But how many of our staff members were able to partake in the self-care parts of it, the yoga, and I can't remember what else.
I don't know the numbers for
Yeah.
each because they were signing up for them,
Yeah.
but we have all of the feedback because that's another function of the Professional Development Committee.
Right.
All of the feedback from every session, they take that, they analyze that, they look to see, what's worth having again in the future, what do we need to tweak if we need to tweak something. And again, those that are presenting themselves, they take that feedback really seriously, and how can I better my presentation or my workshop for the next time?
That's great.
Any other thoughts? Gina, I would agree with you that it's great when the staff
Yeah.
kind of guides and leads and brings attention to what's valuable for them and takes the extra time to prepare for that, to teach the teachers, right? So I think that's a great thank you to our staff for taking that effort. I also thought there was some great diversity, and I'll use the term that was used in here, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think there was some great diversity, equity, and inclusion topics in here as well, too, probably for the larger population. So I think that's very good as well, too. Stays right in line with our goals and what we're doing.
Right.
Excellent. Great. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for that report. Thank you for a great professional day for our teachers as well. Next is our health update. I think we have here visiting us today is Deputy Chief Kenvin. And just a few moments of your time, just any updates you can offer to us would be greatly appreciated.
Certainly.
Well,
Good
we're
evening,
also
everyone.
running early. Jen Rosenberg
Oh,
was coming as
yep.
well, so it could be that because we're earlier on the agenda, so if she walks in at any moment, she'll have her join.
Excuse me, and I'm sorry, I should have picked it up. Do you want to flip it? Do you have a few minutes to
Certainly,
stay?
yeah, absolutely.
You want to flip your superintendent's update first and then give Jen time to get here, or?
We can do that.
Sure.
Would you mind? I don't mean to
No,
call
no.
you up and then send you back.
No.
That's great, because I
Go back in
like,
school.
well, from my standpoint, I appreciate the collaboration that the two of you have for our schools. And so
Absolutely.
if she is on her way, I'd love her to be here too.
Certainly.
And we have the superintendent, so we're going to flip that, guys. Is that okay with everyone?
Great.
Works for
Great.
me. I think that's a great way to handle
Yeah,
it. Yep.
thank you.
Otherwise, we're going to be really early for Aaron, too, at 8:15.
Yes, geez.
He's going to come earlier, though, because I did let him know that I thought that we might be moving earlier on the agenda, too.
Great.
So we should be okay.
Well, go ahead, Dr. Burtis. Your update would be great.
So a couple of things that I have on my update, I know that Deputy Chief Kenvin and Jen Rosenberg will be speaking to as well, but I thought I would go ahead and, being that Foxborough is designated as red at this point, I did send out a communication to all staff and all families on Friday, because there's been that question, what happens if our community is red as far as with our hybrid learning model? And I know, again, that they'll speak to it, but one of the things that's important to know that we have to look at multiple weeks of data. We can't just, and we've talked about that here at school committee a number of different times too, flipping back and forth. We need to take the context. Context matters as far where cases are, and that is going to be multiple weeks of data. And again, where is that data coming from? So that communication out to families was to let them know that yes, that is released weekly as far as from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and that red designates communities that's anywhere where you have over 8 per 100,000, and that the Department of Education, again, gives us guidance in really looking at that rolling metric over time, and that those provide guidance to our communities and then also to our learning models in school. And the important part here is that as we look and monitor those cases that are increasing and decreasing, is that, again, that we take that metric into context. So we're not changing our learning model at this point in time. We are continuing with our hybrid learning model. And that was also in the governor's briefing yesterday. Very much, schools are not super spreaders, and that it's important for our students to be in person as much as we can have them along with the rest of the guidance and following all safety precautions. So I think that is something that's on parents' minds. We will be sharing at the next school committee meeting the check-in survey that we did with families that closed Sunday night at midnight, and we had a great response rate. So there's a lot of data to go through there. And again, we'll share that at the next school committee meeting. But I can tell you just from looking at a lot of the written in comments, it's when are our students going to be back in school full time? And that's on parents' minds, but I think that then once this designation came out, then I had some emails afterwards that said, thank you for sending out that communication, and we're so happy we want them to stay in the hybrid model, because now people are starting to see other districts, some that are fully remote and are just getting ready to go into hybrid and now have extended their fully remote, so they're very thankful that we are in school in our model that we are. So that was some nice feedback to receive just even after that communication went out. And we'll talk more about that at the next school committee meeting, because there is a lot of data and a lot of comments to go through. But it's really important to be able to look at what are some things that we can control, and then there's definitely some things that we're not able to control, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. Some of the other changes as far as from the Department of Education that we have seen in guidance that's changed is in the area of music. We've had 2 tents outside, one at the middle school and one at the high school, in order to have those outdoor learning spaces, because any instrument that is played has to be played outdoors. That's been the guidance. And so we've been having that take place outside, weather permitting. And one of the changes that has come through is that now we can have woodwind instruments and brass instruments played indoors. But again, we still have the guidelines where we have to maintain 10 feet with them. And then they had other suggestions that were suggestions, but we're taking those suggestions and implementing those. So as an example, paper mask with mouthpiece, you can order those. We're going to have those for our students to have that as an extra precaution. It was a suggestion, but we're doing that. We're going to stay outside, weather permitting, up until we can't. But at the same time, the other suggestion was absorbent pads when we think about an instrument and being able to be placed on the floor to catch any moisture that releases from instruments, like from brass instruments from the valves. So we'll have those also. Instrument bell covers will be provided for students as well, and that will also be instructing the students on how to create their own bell covers as well. And then, as always, hand sanitizer that we have in every single classroom. So that was really welcome, a welcome change to be able to have students indoors. We still cannot have chorus or singing indoors. So that part is, definitely, it has implications for our curriculum, and they need to be outdoors.
Will we be able to use the band room and the orchestra room, or will we be spaced out, say, in the gymnasium or the auditorium for the music?
Spaced out like in the auditorium. We can have them on the stage. We can have them out in the auditorium, but we're able to do it to where we can have them at 10 feet.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Oh, Michelle.
Michelle has.
Michelle?
I have to unmute myself. Sorry about that. So is the intent to still have the tents available for the chorus and for the band?
We have one of the tents.
We have both of them until the Thanksgiving break. At that point, we figure it's going to be a little too cold to continue on.
Yeah.
One of them was damaged in that high wind, and then we had to have it replaced.
Fixed right away, yeah.
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 Okay. Thank you.
One of the other updates, I just wanted to do a shout out to our food service. They've just been doing such a fabulous job. We've been increasing by like about 75 in numbers each week. And for our students at the secondary level, as far as the meals that are being prepared for them in meal kits, they have like a 3-day meal kit that goes with them. Elementary students are able to get them daily. We also have 5-day boxes that we can pick up for our students that are cohort D, our fully remote students. The online ordering has really been picking up as far as parents using that, being able to order a whole month in advance. And some of the comments from parents that have come back saying that it's life-changing. Yeah. Just really convenient. And at the same time, we're sending home menus and hard copy with students on how to go about ordering. So the Veterans Day holiday next week, where we typically have the Wednesday pickup, that's going to move to Thursday. And that information will be sent out to families as well. But just wanted to make that note.
I would give a shout out to Janice Watt, because she does a phenomenal job of updating her Facebook page almost daily to, inform the community about what the menu choices are, what the pickup time is, where to pick up. So she just does a fantastic job of taking care of that,
Yeah.
getting the information out to people.
Yes.
In thinking about just taking a step back to the music, and this is more of a what-if question, but is there anything or any brand of support that you could imagine us giving you and your team that might make it more possible for the music to continue even in the colder months outside?
I don't know if that's.
And if you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah, what that
I'm
would
throwing it
look
out
like,
there,
just-
that if that's something that you and your team would want to entertain, that I, for one, would love to just, hear like the what if or if then scenarios.
The problem is, the only way you could heat an area or a venue that would be
Safe.
safe for the kids would be to put sides down, the tents, and
Vent it and then have heat and then
you're in an enclosed area.
portables and then, yeah.
No, then you're in an enclosed area and it's not allowed. So
That's-
virtually, it's got to be an open tented area that has, no restraints on the sides, and if you're doing that, you can't heat the area to keep the kids warm. So,
That's the only
like I
reason.
said, I think we'll push it as far as we can from a temperature point of view, but we always knew when we got to a certain point that would, that would end it, so.
I appreciate that. It's the only reason I ask is just play it out.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I suspect the instruments would have great challenge adjusting to the temperature differentials as well.
Yep.
The ability to tune and play them in extreme changing temperatures, to walk from one place to another can shift drastically, and even high-quality instruments may be difficult to use in the outdoor weather. Also, good to know. Clarinets
Yeah.
in particular, sure.
Like, your fingers will freeze when you're trying to play your trumpet.
Well, we've all
That too.
survived that, but, and you can get plastic mouthpieces, not
Yeah,
metal.
yeah, too.
Your lips
Yeah.
won't get stuck to your mouthpiece, so.
That would be bad.
Those are all extremes, though. Those are all extremes. Sorry for the digressing.
No, and I think too, what's really important is when we think about our music staff, all of our staff, they're working so hard and working so differently than they ever have before, and they're so flexible. And to think about music staff having to be outdoors, and the classes are going out, but they're outdoors with all of their classes.
Right.
So it really just, we know how wonderful all of our staff, they continue to be with making these changes and really being adaptable and being flexible. And it's just, they continue to amaze me with their patience and their flexibility.
Richard? Yeah, there was one other thing with our music department. I did want to shout out to our Foxborough Cable Access, because they did film the marching band doing their marching routine out at I think at the Ahern Field, or was it the Ahern? Or was it at the high school?
They were out at the high school.
At the high school. And I know they're editing it and going to get it. I don't know that it's been made public yet, but I just think it's wonderful, because it is so hard for our community that is so invested in seeing our kids and hearing them play and seeing them perform. And we saw our wonderful drum majors earlier this year, and how much they've poured into the marching, and then to not be able to do it, at least in the fall, maybe in the spring. We're hopeful, optimistic, but it's wonderful that we have Foxborough Cable Access helping to, highlight our young musicians in that way. So just wanted to mention that.
Yes. And even to go back to the earlier agenda item from our keynote speaker this morning, that happened because of Foxborough Cable Access. We were able to have everyone on with the entire district because of what Foxborough Cable Access did.
I
So
don't
again,
think
thank
we
you,
can
Mike.
thank our friends and Mike Weber and our friends at Foxborough Cable Access enough, really, honestly.
So a couple of the other updates, it's just informational at this point. I know that we'll end up having further discussion. So as an example, one of the things that the Department of Education has announced is that, much to our chagrin, that the MCAS is still scheduled to take place. And that's supposed to be administered this year, and that the state is preparing for all contingencies here. For high school students, we know that it is a competency determination for graduation. And last year, when we think about MCAS, we were not obviously in school at that time, but MCAS, where that's a state law, it's at the federal level. So they've made it clear at the federal level that they are not entertaining waivers from states at this point in time. So in order for us not to administer MCAS, the state would have to apply for a waiver at the federal level to be able to have that authority to not administer MCAS. So we have to go at this point in time with planning for that, which logistically makes that very challenging, particularly when we think about a hybrid model and having students half at a time. And at the same time, it would be your juniors going back to take what they missed as sophomores. And that opportunity is January, or you could wait till the end of the school year in May. But if you were to do that, then we're limiting the opportunities for our students by not giving them the option in January, which we don't want to do. Right. We want to be able to give them as many opportunities as they would need, particularly where it's a graduation requirement. And then we would also still have our current sophomores that would need to take MCAS in the spring. So you would end up having double the amount. And it's already a logistical challenge just to make that happen. So what will end up happening with MCAS as the year goes on, we'll see at this point in time, but I think it's important to say that we're planning for that because it will impact our own scheduling. So as an example, one of the things that we're talking about internally planning is that in January, when we would administer that, it would take 10 days worth of testing for your juniors based on a hybrid model and only being able to have the number of classrooms, spaces, and then double the number of proctors in order to administer that. 10 days of testing is certainly not anything that we're interested in. So what are ways that we could reduce that and have less impact on all of our students so we can have more in-person learning? If we cut that in half, if you will, one of the conversations is you have just the juniors come in for those days to be able to take the MCAS for 5 days, and so you're reducing it by half. And then you would have the juniors along with freshmen, sophomore, and seniors then be remote, synchronous with their teachers the rest of that day for those days. So we could see a week in January that it would be just juniors coming in, and then it would be remote teaching synchronously online with our students, live with teachers, for the remainder part of that day.
And then just to clarify, I'm just trying to process everything you said. That's in the hybrid model, that's the equivalent of 2 weeks of in-person education that we're going to spend on potentially a test, a state mandated test in a year where everybody knows that learning is compromised. I'm not trying to bait you or anything like that. I'm just reframing it in a different way, because to me I know that this district has been good, very good, in fact, about meeting its obligations to the state. But I also know that folks in administration, through support of school committee in the town and the families, have been vocal when saying that things aren't fair, including we've talked most recently about the charter school funding model and things like that. To me, this seems patently unfair. And we'll see how that plays out. But if there's any place, for my 2 cents, if there's any place to speak out on that, I just feel it's a net detriment to take 2 weeks equivalent learning in an already limited year to devote to, in this case, meeting what has proven in the past to be a malleable state requirement. But that's my own perspective.
And we're starting to see from different professional organizations position papers being put forward to the state.
Okay.
So, and just my 2 cents is that it is not just that's not just a challenge for Foxborough, it's a challenge for every student in the state that has to take this test.
Yes.
So if there's going to be, if we want to try to impact change, it has to be at the state level, not just from Foxborough.
Correct.
So people, if they're interested in trying to impact change there, then they need to find the right information on how to get involved and how to make their opinions known.
That's absolutely correct. It's not a Foxborough decision. It is at the state, it's at the state level. So that's where the efforts and energies need to go toward.
So,
Talk to our local representatives who have a voice in the state legislature.
that's what I was going to say.
That's certainly one possibility, but to touch on what she said, I think there are multiple position papers coming out from multiple entities across the state.
Okay.
Because there's a whole bunch of steps to get it to the federal waiver level. So, but well said, everyone, that, speak up, have your voice be heard.
As far as other calendar conversation, the week of Thanksgiving, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's on our school calendar. Those are half days because of parent-teacher conferences. But because of being in a hybrid model, now we have some other changes that are going to take place because of that.
Sure.
So one of them is thinking about our elementary model. So to start, and this has been communicated through principals with two parents, where we have a AM session and a PM session. So we're going to, on the Monday for elementary, we would have the cohort A come on Monday, but since they're all half days, on Tuesday, we would have cohort B come on the Tuesday morning. And then on Wednesday, it would be cohort A. And then thinking further ahead, when we have another half day, then we would have cohort B. So we're looking at that to be able to have the balance across the cohorts there, and that's how we're able to do that. At the same time, typically on a half day for elementary, they release at 12:07, but right now in our elementary hybrid, they release at 11:15. So we'll end up seeing a change in dismissal for the elementary level as well. So they'll be staying a little bit longer at the elementary level for those half days. The middle school will remain unchanged. You'll have your A, B, and then remote on Wednesday. The change that we're going to make for the high school is again, if you think about it, the secondary level, because it's half days, from a student perspective, I'm in school for a half day for the week, that's it. So at the high school, we want to take those 3 half days and have all high school students remote for those 3 days. And the rationale behind that is we'll be able to have them for longer instructional time, to be able to bring the 2 cohorts together that Monday through Wednesday.
Sure.
And that's going to help, because you end up having some between the A and the B, and it'll help to kind of shore that up a little bit more. And then at the same time, if we were in a situation where we had to go fully remote, it would provide kind of a practice run, if you will, with those 3 half days.
So those 3 half days will be fully synchronized remote
With teachers.
learning with teachers.
Yep.
And then the parent-teacher conferences themselves, will those be virtual?
Those will be virtual, and that information is coming out for parents to be able to sign up for those as well.
Great.
The other part as far as calendar, and I've seen, there's a lot of chatter out on where the commissioner has determined that for this school year only, that if there are days when schools must close due to inclement weather, meaning snow days, that districts can choose whether to treat those snow days as remote learning days, and that's left up to the local level. And that decision, so we're in conversation about that, because we really have to keep an open mind and think about, you could have power outages or scattered power outages, at the same time thinking about our students having their devices in their hands. So there's pros and cons, I think, on both sides of that. I hope we have no snow days. I'll just say that to begin with. But at the same time, we don't want to be in a situation where a snow day happens and we're having to make the decision at that point in time that it's a snow day and it's a remote learning day, or it's a snow day and it's a snow day. So there's a lot for us to consider, where our faculty lives, for one, what's happening with the town when we think about connectivity. So I bring that up because that's going to be something that we'll be talking about internally more so. It's not something that has to be negotiated, and it's not a school committee vote, but at the same time, I just wanted to bring it up and let you know that those are the conversations that we're having, and that would be for this year only if that were the case.
Appreciate it.
And I think that's it for my updates. Because the rest of them will be covered under technology updates, and then also with Jen Rosenberg and Deputy Chief Kinvin.
I actually have a question for Bill. Same question I asked last time. Is everything with transportation still running smoothly, and as well as with on the custodial side, is everything still running smoothly?
Yes, both are running smoothly. I mean, obviously, we have the same issues relative to if someone does have to stay out, whether they're doing it as from a testing point of view or a safeguard point of view. We don't have unlimited staff, so that is straining us a little, if you will. But I think in general, we've been managing the whole process well. Knock on wood, we hope it stays the way it's been at this point, but no issues yet. So
thank you.
Well, just on transportation, a huge thank you to the Transportation
yeah.
Department for working on all those things. Extra runs, extra time, commitment, dedication, plowing through, right? So, I didn't mean, sorry, I don't want to scare snow, but staying the course. So I really, huge thank you to the Transportation
Absolutely.
Department for that, because you're probably right up against it, and we've understood you. You're making it well, but it's just right up against it. Right?
My follow-up is similar to the question I asked after your question, Rob, last time, was staffing levels and stresses or opportunities you're seeing there, and I know everybody's working on, firing on all cylinders, and just seeing your sense on how, if there's a potential need to take on more staffing or shift the staffing ratios.
Well, honestly, I don't think you can get more staffing at this point in time. I think we continue to try in the areas like custodial to have additional temporaries, the same as we would with subs for the teaching side. But
Sure.
The reality is we're in an environment where we have to try to figure out how to make do with what we have and survive through that. Again, shy of a major incident within one of the schools or within one of the within the buses. We're managing, I think, is the only way you can look at it, and I think we're doing fine with it, but it's everything, right now is status quo, not able to really, hire replacements or things like that to sponsor or support further what we have, so.
Thanks.
Any questions, anyone else? Great.
Thank you.
Well, let's move ahead if we could. Thank you for the report. Always good to get the update and the whole, covering the field, so to speak. Let's move ahead to our health update. We have Jen Rosenberg here, has arrived, and Deputy Chief Kenvin as well. So please come on up. And do we need 2 microphones, or? Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, so I guess we're here. We know we've had some cases in Foxborough now, and we're dealing with them case by case. Tom and I have been working really closely together along with the team and handling each case. I don't know if Tom wants to talk about the state of red. I think that's on everyone's mind right now and their concerns. So do you want to say a little bit about our being in the red?
Of course. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. So as Director Bertos had said, we unfortunately achieved red designation status. But to mirror her statements earlier, it is important to keep that in context. Foxborough right now has 17 active cases, so it's important to consider these cases in regards to what they actually mean. The red designation doesn't really mean that we have an outbreak per se. It means we could have some clusters. So we are not in the same boat as some of our more popular cities and towns that are burdened with caseloads. It's more in relation to the rate of caseloads over a given period of time. Sure. So as Dr. Burrows said, 8 cases within a particular average daily case rate over a 2-week period of time will give you the red designation. And really what that is a trigger for administrators to start queuing in on changes that may need to be made later down the line. So actively thinking in accordance with the governor's guidelines the other day, considering, their actions where you see the curfews. These are things to curtail activities outside of the workplace and educational forums. As the governor stated that Schools are not the sources of infections, and neither are workplaces that are in accordance with the guidelines put out by the DPH. What we're seeing is the caseloads are increasing because of social gatherings. So as individuals, if we adhere to the social distancing, the mask wearing, and limiting our exposures, I think that we can actually curtail the rate of infection, especially in Foxborough. For instance, with regards to a couple of our caseloads, we may have a house that has 4 positives as household contacts. We may have a workplace that has 5 positives. There are actually a couple of cases right now that I'm still trying to effort where the primary address resides. So that's something that we are still working through. So these designations are snapshots in time. They're not something that, is descriptive, I think, or accurately descriptive of Foxborough at the moment. So having said that, we'll have a few cases, we'll clear a few cases, and we seem to be holding that trend. So there's no dispute that the number is increasing, that it's becoming more problematic, especially as we start to trend into the fall. We have more indoor activities. There seems to be, maybe some COVID complacency as folks get fatigued dealing with things, and the need for interpersonal interaction, which is, I think we can all understand, especially in the student bodies and the educational forums where students need to be around other students. And I think that is so important for mental health. But given the red status, we will look at it the next couple of weeks. Dr. Burrows does have a dashboard which will show the numbers as we reflect accurately throughout each day. It's updated several times. That will also show the rate of infection over a 2-week period. So it gives you an indication of what status changes we may incur. But the DPH does point out that we want to make sure that this is in context and that this is a snapshot in time. This is one period of time when the designations are made. So we need to look at the entire picture when deciding what our real risk profile looks like for the community. And as Jen stated, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been working very closely together. We have and will continue to support the schools with regards to testing and support. We have the ability to do rapid real-time testing for RT-PCR as well as 24-hour testing, so we can jump on things very, very quickly to support the faculty and the administration with both the schools or other town departments as well, in an effort to try to keep things moving and keep people safe. That is our utmost important priority.
Thanks, Tom. Does anyone have any questions for us about anything as far as health related?
I guess I have a question. Just a point of clarification. I know I've seen the emails that Dr. Berdos has been great about forwarding them to us as well. Mm-hmm. I'm confused about the close contacts rule. I know you very clearly stated it when you were here the last time that it was within 6 feet for 15 minutes at a time. But it's my understanding the CDC has said that it's not 15 consecutive minutes, that
right.
it's 15 total minutes.
Correct.
And is that the standard that we're using here in Foxborough? Because I think there is a little bit of confusion within the community about that.
And when CDC came out, Tom and I talked about it. I actually immediately texted him.
Yeah.
I said, that's what we've been doing all along.
Okay.
We've always
Thank
considered it a cumulative 15 minutes over the course of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's honestly the reason that we are erring on the side of caution
Mm-hmm.
with especially our elementary levels. If there's a case in there, we had talked about this before anything had even started, that we would probably deem the entire class a close contact just because there's a lot of movement.
At an elementary
level.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we can't be sure that they didn't cross that 6 feet because they just don't know, right? They're doing great. I mean, I think the kids, especially at the elementary level, are really wearing their masks.
Mm-hmm.
The parents are calling our nurses. The nurses are on the phone all the time. They're keeping their kids home when they're sick. And that's what's going to curtail.
Yeah,
So we need to stay vigilant. We have to stay the course of action. I ask all the parents to continue to do what they're doing at home every morning, waking up, checking with symptoms. And again, case by case, we're taking each case separately, and we're going to follow the protocols. There are little nuances to each case, but we're going to work together, and I think Tom and I are on the same page as far as that goes.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
I think, too, just to add is when we think about from a staffing level, this is a challenge, just completely honest here, because our staff is being so vigilant along with our families, that we're saying that if you have symptoms, stay home. Well, then they're erring on the side of caution. And so then they're getting tested. So the number of tests I mean, we were up like between staff and students that we knew, like 170 something that were all negative. But at the same time, I think that just shows the vigilance is with the testing. I have a symptom, I'm going to get tested. And so when you have that, then you end up having staff that's out.
Right.
And in subs, and as you can probably imagine, to have substitute teachers right now in the middle of a pandemic is challenging on top of that. So I just, a shout out to the building administrators too, and the staff that are jumping in and covering for each other when we have staff out for those reasons. I don't think people really understand the complexities of running a school.
Right.
And there's a lot there in order to be able to keep the learning going for our students because we want them in person. But at the same time, they're doing what they need to do. They're really being very careful and looking at the symptom self-checker and following that. So I do think that we are doing a really good job of erring on the side of caution. And so the comment in families or those things, we don't have the evidence of transmission in schools. So if we have a case, we're able to look, we're able to see who would be considered the close contacts. We're sending out the communication to the classroom, and then we're also sending it out at the school level, just because, to be fully transparent, so we'll know. We send it out to staff as well. We're not saying whether it's a staff member or whether it's a student, a person in our learning community, because that's to protect the confidentiality of the individual.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to, I want to, as a parent and a community member, I've received, the notifications that have come at the school level. I also have received one of the notifications that came out at the classroom level. I appreciated how clearly that second communication was written about what I need, whether there was action that needed to be taken or not needed to be taken. I thought it was very well worded because it was very clear what exposure my student had had and whether I needed to do anything about that. So I just appreciated, again, the clarity around and the transparency. So thank you.
I just did a little bit of clarification. I don't have any kids in the schools right now, but I've seen a couple questions that if you have more than one child at the high school, and will you get a notification of which child might have been a close contact versus,
we fielded a lot of these emails, and again, this is a learning for all of us, right? And
we understand that.
And with every situation, we're going to make improvements as we go along.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that we didn't distinguish between. And we did field a bunch of emails, and we clarified with parents. So, and that's another thing. I would encourage parents to reach out. My email is right there, my phone number for my office. I would rather have a parent call than sit and worry about something. I've talked to a handful of parents already, and I feel like after the conversation, they feel better. Whatever I said, I don't know if it was helpful or not.
I'm sure you're very helpful, but I
encourage people to reach out. I don't mind fielding. I email, I'll get back to you. And I did one voicemail. I couldn't understand a parent, so if I did not respond to you, just call me back, because I always respond to my emails and voicemails.
Thank you.
Right.
And this is more along the theme of reaching out, but I'm just going to ask the question. If families have a question or concern about the close contact thing, so just hypothetically in a high school case where the baseline assumption isn't full class mixing, but that where a student might report, we were doing group work or things like that, would you encourage the families to call just to ask the question?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I say that to families who might be listening who post on social media instead of calling the schools.
Right, no.
Please call the schools and ask, please.
Please.
I would rather field a call, because then I can give accurate information.
So I'd rather the discussion go here where they can get the information.
Absolutely.
Michelle?
Right. And I just wanted to echo that as a parent who's had those questions and had a child get sick with another virus at school. It really, the nurses are fantastic with answering questions, with helping the student in those situations. And Jen, you were so very helpful in even finding places for testing that parents, if you have questions, reach out to the resources. We have amazing resources here to answer those questions that have all of that information at their fingertips. So I just wanted to kind of just echo that it's really helpful to get right to the source. And I didn't realize how much information that you guys had. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just-
I did want to highlight what both Deputy Chief Kenman said and Dr. Berto said, that the governor, when he spoke the other day, he mentioned numerous times that the schools are not the super spreader. So I think that's really key for us to know. Our schools, this school system, but I think many school systems, but we can speak about this one, has put in the protocols in place to manage the student population. And that's why we're having great success in the community. That's why we're staying in hybrid and we're not shifting and moving back and forth, because we have protocols. So I think the schools are trying their very hardest to do their very best in collaboration with the town side as well. So I think the takeaway, even as Brent said, if you have questions, ask where they come to. But the other takeaway is that the spreading is not happening in the school building when you go to school in the morning or in the afternoon. If spreads are happening, it's kind of all of our responsibility, which I think we've all said this, to maintain this and to do what we want. We had numerous questions given to the school committee when we were making this decision process this summer, and there was a range of questions, but there was a whole bunch of ones that I remembered reading them off about, please get our kids in school, please get our kids in remotes, they want to be in school. If we want our kids in school, we have to stay the course and hold the line. I don't think there's anything else we can say. These are the conditions, these are the metrics, this is the way this town and every town is measured. Like it or not, this is the way it is, and we just got to stay the course.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think, you emphasize that it is everyone in the community that has to stay the course, that our parents and our educators and our students and our community members, we all have to work together and continue doing the right things so that we can keep our kids in school and keep this going without, huge issues.
And I know it can be frustrating for parents if their, son has a cold and they're like, or the allergies, and they're having to go out and get a COVID test. But I think if we just have to frame it like we're doing it to protect everyone, your child has to stay home for 2 weeks to protect everyone. I think the health is a priority right now. And,
Speaking of that, flu shot clinic next week?
Yep, we're having our 4th flu shot clinic for the town of Foxboro families next Tuesday evening from 5 to 8 at the high school again.
And younger kids can come too.
3 and older now. And then Tom and I are actually working together. We're going to hold another one. We have some vaccines in stock.
Rob?
So we'll
stay
tuned.
I just want to pick up on what you said. Yes, our schools are not super spreaders, but that does not mean that we get to be more aggressive in changing the policies around how we're approaching learning. We're not going to put kids, go back to full classroom ahead of the curve. We're going to stick with the model that we're having. So, because I know, I can imagine some people will hear schools are not super spreaders, and they're going to say, we're going to get questions saying, then why can't we get everybody back in the classroom every day of the week? And the reason they're not super spreaders is because we're following the guidelines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Exactly.
thank you. You have to remember, the CDC guidelines are 6 feet.
Right.
We also have restrictions on transportation. We have restrictions on eating in the cafeteria. So there's a lot that has to be considered.
Brett?
Follow up on the flu clinic and then just one more larger statement. But I know it's a bit early, but does anybody yet have a sense of kind of coverage in terms of how we're doing with the broader student body towards progressing towards those full vaccinations? I know the target's the end of January, correct? Oh, December, end of December. Thank you, Dr. Barros. End of December.
We're probably not at 50% even yet.
Say that again?
We're probably not at 50%
Okay.
vaccinated yet.
And then the other one
35.
is, as I tell my own students and players I coach, please don't be the reason none of our kids can go to school.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for your
you.
time. Thanks
Thank
for the
you for
update.
having us.
Thanks for everything you're
We're
doing.
always
gonna
welcome.
miss you all next year if we're not here.
You can catch us every Monday night.
Right. Yeah, watch from home.
Right here.
Watch
That's right.
from home.
Hopefully not for these reasons, though. You can come see us, but hopefully we'll be done with
Bring
this.
muffins or something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did see Aaron Heyer come in, so I think we're up to the tech update. Please, welcome aboard.
Hey, Aaron.
Good evening, how are you?
Great.
How are you?
Yeah.
So there's so much technology information to share tonight, but in light of the governor's new curfew, I'm going to give you the abridged version.
Thank you.
It's not till 12:01 on Thursday, on Friday morning. Can you slide the microphone over in front of you? Thank you.
You gotta get him before he turn into pumpkins.
So I'm really excited to be here, actually, because I'm here to share some good news tonight. So it's been confirmed that most of the computers that we have ordered for our teachers and students have been received to the vendor warehouse in Southwick, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So early tomorrow morning, some of our technology staff members will be heading out to Southwick to start working there to verify our deployment process and methodology and make sure that things are ready to go. So tomorrow, we'll also learn some crucial information that will help inform our further planning and help us finalize our deployment strategy and schedule. Part of this, we'll be starting to learn how quickly we'll be able to get the machines here to Foxborough. So we're hoping that we'll have machines ready to be here and start deploying to teachers as early as the week of November 16th and to students starting as early as the week of the 23rd. Obviously, with Thanksgiving there, it will be a phased implementation. We're hoping to get maybe 1 or 2 grades started that week. Some other updates, I think everybody's known that COVID-19 has really catapulted our use of technology in new direction. In the spring, we quickly realized how important for student social emotional health and for student learning that synchronous learning opportunities in audio and video conferencing would be for students. So I wanted to give an update on some of our use of audio and video conferencing tools. So as you know, that we've been using WebEx and Teams. The reason that we decided to use both WebEx and Teams this spring was we realized how important it was for teachers and students to be able to see each other for both for learning, student learning and teaching, and to have those more personal connections with other students and with teachers. So with that said, at the time, Microsoft Teams was limited to 4 concurrent video connections. So we wanted to be able to do it as safely as possible. So we ended up engaging with WebEx, because at the time, WebEx could have up to 24 video sessions. Since then, there's really been a race between all video conferencing companies, and now Microsoft is up to 49 concurrent video connections. Good. With that said, from our experiences and feedback from students, from teachers, from parents, we found that having the 2 platforms has been a little bit of a source of frustration and difficulty for people to navigate. In addition to that, we have had some technical issues that persist with WebEx. And because the teaching and learning process is so important, we want to make that as easy as possible. So starting this month, we're going to begin to transition people that are using WebEx for teaching and learning and synchronous meetings to Teams. We find that this is going to be a fairly easy transition for people, especially with the deployment of laptops, that all students will be using their Microsoft usernames and passwords to log into the computers. Microsoft Teams will be integrated into the laptop configuration. So we're hoping this is going to be easy and easier for people to support, whether it's with home learning for students and for teachers as well. So I wanted to share that with you too. In terms of the laptop deployment and the schedule, we're hoping to move through the deployment as quickly as possible. We'll be beginning with both the middle school and the high school student laptop concurrently. So we'll be starting with the freshman class, the 9th graders and the 8th graders, and then we'll be working both up and down in grades at the same time. So we'll do 8th grade and 9th grade at the same time, and 7 and 10, and so on and so on. And then we'll continue with the elementary school students once the middle and the high school are done. Part of the process in which we're putting together, it's almost like a white glove deployment process. So all the machines will be taken out of the box. They'll all be joined to the Foxboro network, and all of the settings and configuration will be done, and the machines will be tested before they're assigned to students. So this includes things like, for instance, setting the time zone and making sure that the clock is correct and the daylight savings settings are correct. Making sure that all the applications are installed and configured correctly, so that when students log into the machines and teachers log into the machines, that they're ready to be used. We're hoping to avoid any issues with machines that are not functioning or don't have the correct configuration, and really too to make it as easy as possible for students and then for families, that families aren't being asked to configure machines or go through tech support processes or long processes to get the machines up and running. So with that said, we feel that the deployment will be pretty successful, and that students will have good experiences, getting up and running with the laptops. Some other things to know: we do have some information posted on the website on the one-to-one computer program. There are some prerequisites. It does require that you complete the student re-registration or re-enrollment process. We've talked about this, that sometimes that re-enrollment term can be a little bit confusing. So this is the yearly kind of demographic information update. This is your contact information, emergency contacts. But it's also where you sign off and you read all the district policies, the student handbook, the technology policy. So before students will be able to take their computers home, this process needs to be completed. So we know there are some families that still haven't completed this process. Again, it is very important that we have this information for both the policies and technology side, but also to contact families in case of emergencies, or if there's reasons to contact, whether it's a snow cancellation or a schedule change as well. So there is some information online about the one-to-one deployment. There also is, we're also offering an additional device protection plan. So we know that there's a lot of anxiety around giving students sometimes a device that's $400 to $500. There's some concerns about damage, so there's some information about an optional device protection plan. For this year, the cost of the plan will be $40. But the plan will be prorated for when students receive their machine for this year. So people are given the option to sign up for this plan as part of the registration, and then once the machines are received and ready to be deployed, we'll be sending electronic, via email, sending people a notice and letting them know what the final cost of the program will be if they wish to join.
Aaron, if they are one that's already completed, because the majority of parents have completed the re-registration verification and they didn't sign up at that time for the protection plan, how do they go back and then sign up for the protection plan?
So once, when we deploy the machines, we'll be sending home some additional information. So if you didn't choose to enroll in the plan, or you've changed your mind, you'll be able to contact us via the website and sign up online.
I think this is kind of critical, and I kind of harped on this every single time we've talked about the laptops, but this is no different than us handing a very expensive book to a student. They're responsible. You as a parent are responsible. If we don't get a book back, we expect the parent to pay for the lost book, because we have to go out and buy another one for the next student who needs it. These computers are not, something that's going to be out there for 1 year. They're multi-year use. I would highly suggest to parents that maybe a good Christmas gift would be to buy a cover, hard shell type setup for the computer, so that if the student drops it, or if the student wishes to put a sticker or something on it, they're not putting it on the computer, because again, that's considered damage and they'll be responsible for it. A junior and senior will be graduating. They'll be giving that laptop back. It will be going to another student a few years, in a year from now for seniors, and 2 years from now for juniors. They have to come back in the condition that they are usable, and that, obviously tech will go through them and make sure everything is, removed and properly set up, and that they're not damaged and stuff. But this is really, this is not, we're just giving you something and we don't care. We care very much about this product. It's a very big investment by this community, and it has to be treated that way. So, and I can only give you the issue that we ran into, where we gave out just a few last spring in laptops to families. Some we're still struggling to find and get back, because they didn't. And even though we gave them instructions that they had to come back at the end of the school year, some have come back damaged. And they're looking at us like they don't understand why it's an issue. And quite honestly, we will not give you a new computer. We will give you a used computer if yours is damaged, because obviously, we aren't in a position where we can just keep handing out brand new computers. So I highly recommend that the parents, buy into the program. I would rather, as a parent, pay $35 or $40 this year. I'll probably end up being around $35 or less. Then have to pay $200 because the screen got broken, or the keyboards got snapped out, or some other issue, with the computer itself. So, but again, this is an investment by the town that needs to be taken seriously, because we're not going to be in a mode of spending $1 million to replace these units.
Right. Related to that, very much piggybacking off of Bill's good comments, just to clarify for those who are listening, are the devices that we're procuring waterproof?
So really, we're thoughtful about the selection of the devices.
You have been.
So the devices, they're ruggedized devices. So they conform to a pretty high military spec. They're dust resistant, they're water resistant, they're impact resistant. Now with that, they're resistant. They're not waterproof. They're not, impact proof. So I will tell you, we fully understand that accidents happen, and that this equipment needs to be durable. So we've done what we can to the extent possible to make sure that we're putting the most durable equipment in our students' and teachers' hands. In terms of cases, cases they're a great way to protect the device. They also allow students to personalize the device by putting stickers or drawing on the case, right? Because you can't draw or put stickers on the computer, because it is very, very labor intense, right, to get stickers off. This is something we found, that it's actually less labor to replace the exterior case of the machine in some cases than it is to get stickers and adhesive off the outside of them. Regrettably, I can say I have seen them, fall from 2 to 3 feet.
Yeah.
And they hold up. I have seen them not break, but I've seen them fall from 2 to 3 feet, and the experience can be very different, right? So it really does depend. But the computers they're very rugged. The gauge of the plastics and the materials that the cover is made of is much more durable than the typical computer you would buy off the shelf in a retail store. The hinges are made of metal versus plastic, so that they can take that constant opening and closing. And there's a lot of great features in the machines too. I think we've shared in the past that there's a feature on these machines called Pencil Touch. It allows you to use a number 2 pencil as a stylus. If you've researched tablet technology, what you'll find is that the electronic styluses can be very expensive, upwards of $100 a piece. It's very easy to lose a stylus. I've lost 3 or 4 of them myself. And then also the batteries that they use, they're similar to hearing aid batteries. They're very small, they're very expensive. They can cost upwards of $40 to replace a battery. So this feature allows us to use something that's common common in the school building, a number 2 pencil, as a stylus to do arithmetic or drawing. It really opens up a lot of opportunities. Our instructional tech team, at the elementary level, I know they've already been working on letter formation lessons for students that are practicing handwriting, and it's really been great. So with that said too, just know that we're not just going to hand out computers to students, so that when we do hand out the computers to students, we're going to talk to them about things like device care, right, and how to properly clean the device, what type of cleaning materials they can use on it, how to carry it, right, how to protect it, not to leave it in extreme temperatures, right, make sure that there's not a pencil or something on the keyboard when you close it, because that's a very easy way to damage it. But also talking about the responsibilities of keeping it charged and bringing it to school with them. And there's obviously different developmentally appropriate lessons for students, for caring for the devices. And then at the same time, we'll be working, closely, our teachers will be working with students to get them up to speed in terms of the digital learning tools that we're using as well. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important because Aaron, the point Aaron was making about the option of what we purchased. We did not purchase Chromebooks, which are a very basic level technology. We purchase things that we really believe the students will have, obviously more storage, more power, more capabilities than that of a Chromebook, because we want the learning, to be as authentic as possible, and we want it not to be, hard either. We want it to be easy. So, these are definitely not, a very, baseline machine. They're a machine that really should serve the students well, as well as our teachers. But again, care is everything when it comes to these.
Right, just continue along that vein. Thank you so much, Aaron, for all that information, and Bill. Because Bill mentioned the case, if you have it in front of you, can you just remind folks who are watching, or those who watch it later, what is the model again? I know it's been said in this meeting before.
So the model that all students and teachers will be receiving it's a Lenovo 300E.
That's right.
Windows laptop.
Lenovo 300E, okay. And then the reason I asked about the waterproof, and I knew the answer too, but water resistance, great. But at the same time, having lived this as a teacher and a parent, and there's little more frustrating than having your device break in a one-to-one scenario. It's so frustrating for the student, for the parent, and for the teacher, because all these faculty have worked to make this curriculum online, and if they don't have access to that basic machine, then everything gets put on hold. So I'll piggyback on what Mr. Yukna said, and I implore you, buy the insurance, because it just makes life so much easier.
So too, our staff internally, we're having them trained and certified as Lenovo repair technicians, so that we can stock parts and we can perform warranty repairs internally.
That's great.
And really the purpose of this is so that we can turn around machines really, really quickly when they're broken. So versus having to box them and send them, ground shipping, 3 to 7 days each way, and then waiting 3 to 7 days for repairs, that we can have our staff internally, they can diagnose warranty problems, we can order parts. Lenovo will allow us to stock certain parts that are high fail or that are more common failure parts, so that we have them here. And then we'll also be sharing again, we've put together some pretty comprehensive protocols around depot and drop-off repair and what that will look like, as well as our use of PPE and strategies for cleaning equipment when it comes in and out of repair, to make sure that everybody's staying safe too.
Yeah, and again, one of the other parts of that is we're deploying 2,600 computers. We're not increasing our staff. So, we still have to maintain all of our systems. We still have to maintain everything else. So, again, this issue of, damage to computers will take away resources from us as well, because we'll have to dedicate them to something that is not the critical mission, which is the education side. So, again, it's just like everything else. This is a team effort. We all work together. You know, you'll have a great experience. You'll have a good piece of equipment. You'll be able to, you know, learn and you know, do the things you need to do. But it's you know, Aaron has taken the steps to try to make this a successful deployment. But again, there's a cost, you know, whether it's a manpower cost or, you know, a material cost if things don't go well and we have a lot of damage and a lot of problems.
If I could just, just to piggyback on the buying of the case, I'm coming at this from a mom perspective.
Yeah.
I'm sure our building principals are going to convey this good news to the parents in their weekly updates and their newsletters and the emails that they send out. If they maybe would want to suggest or remind that buying a case might be a good idea going forward. You know, even if you had a couple models that are optimal for it, you know, that you could suggest. Maybe the more information that's out there, the better. And I would assume that these cases are probably hot items on Amazon because everyone is buying computers for their school districts, and they might be, you might want to order one now for a few weeks from now, potentially. So it's just a thought, because not everybody watches our meetings.
Yes, we're posting that type of information again, so on the website,
Yeah.
under student and families, there's
That's
a
great.
whole section on the one-to-one computer initiative right now.
Oh, that's great to
We're
know.
posting that information too.
Wonderful. Just on the main website, if you click on student and family information, you go on that?
Yes. on
Not the
main
COVID website,
Nope,
the main website.
you go to students and families. Then I do believe it's also posted on the COVID side
Okay.
as well, but
Yeah.
under the main website, under student and families, there's a section for one-to-one computing. Yeah.
Great.
So-
That's good information to have.
Just lastly, we really are amazed by the quick adoption of technology and digital learning strategies by our teachers and our students, and I'll even say our parents, right? So really, as Bill said, this really has been a collaborative effort, all hands on deck to try to do the best we can for our students and have learning continue for them. So again, just want to say thank you for everybody's support, and then thank you to all the parents at home too, because we know how hard parents have worked, you know, throughout COVID to help with students and supporting them with technology and learning new technology. So,
And I'd just like to add it as far as the parent piece, because as Aaron had mentioned before, you know, that point of frustration and with WebEx and the decision for us to move away from that was not an easy decision, because a lot of time and effort's been put into that, and on the parent side too. And we've heard from parents a lot of frustration there. But what I think is important to understand is this is not going to happen overnight. We're going to transition through the month of November, so I don't want particularly elementary parents where the specials are conducted through WebEx for them to think, oh my goodness, tomorrow are they going to be on Teams and not WebEx? We're transitioning with everyone, teachers, parents, over the course of the month of November. It's something that we want to make sure that we can do as seamless as technology will allow us to do, but don't expect that to happen overnight. We want to be able to prepare everyone. And at the same time, I think when Aaron talked about that white glove dissemination of the laptops, I think that's a really important piece, because if you hear or you see in the news when a district has their laptops and they're driving through and they're handing a box and they're putting it in the trunk of a car, the reason that's not happening is because our technology department is so methodical in wanting to make sure that the user end experience from students and parents is going to be one that is not going to cause more frustration. It's going to automatically connect to the network, all of those programs and things that are going to be there. I think that part's really important to understand, that we're not just handing over a box with a computer.
You're not going to have to take the computer out of the box and then install all of the software and applications that you need and create all the shortcuts and find all the links. That all that stuff is going to be on the machine and ready to go. And the other thing is too, is that for our teachers to be able to support students to the level that they do, it's going to greatly help them that things are the same, right? So the start menu looks the same, the icons are in the same place and the same color, and the links are there that students need. So we really had to really, we had to build a whole new environment in terms of to manage these laptops, because they're not just in our school buildings, they're not plugged into our network. They could be anywhere, and we'll be able to support them with the tools and the technology that we've built into them. So it's one thing, too, where we supported, remote learning in the spring, and all of our staff, we redeployed our staff to support, whether it was parents or phone calls coming in from home. In the hybrid model, we're still supporting calls from home, but then we also have our teachers and students in the building, and although there's less of them in the building, they still have the same basic technology needs, whether it's the interactive whiteboards, the projectors, the classroom computers. So again, as Bill said, we haven't expanded on staff, so we really had to try to leverage the technology to make that happen to the extent possible. So.
And I'll do one more plug for the third time at a school committee meeting, and that is, you're a family of one child, and you got one computer running. Your technology at home has to be at one level. You're a family with 5 children at home, and potentially a parent working at home or 2. Your technology at home has to be at a different level. So while we're giving you the equipment that can manage it, if you don't have the internet strength or speed to manage it within your household, please look at that. Please talk to your providers and ask them questions, because in some cases it's a minor cost increase, but it's a big difference as to what it will be as far as the end result for your student. And we can't control that, and it'll come down to a latency issue where, 3 computers, bumping for the same, internet speed within a building. If it's slow speed, only one really communicates at a time. So, you don't really get as much, speed as you think just because you have internet within your home. So again, many families, that's not going to be an issue if they only have 1 or 2 children at home, but, families with more, they're all going to be on at the same time. So it's a potential.
I guess the last thing to mention, this is our own experiences here in the town of Foxborough. The cost of internet and cable plans are constantly changing. We just recently upgraded a couple of our internet connections, almost doubling the speed, finding that it was actually more for less. So we were able to reach out to Verizon and to Comcast and look at what their current offerings are and actually get more bandwidth for less money. So that it is worth reaching out to Comcast or Verizon if you do have a concern and seeing what their current offers are, again, because you may be able to get more bandwidth, for the same or less money even. So.
Thank you. Very thorough. I know a lot of people were anxious, so thank you for all that information.
Great. Well, so hopefully we'll have some more information to report out, and we'll share it out through the principals, again, in their newsletters, and through email in the next week or so, too, to give you more accurate timelines and schedules and a better understanding of what the exact process will be. So,
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Aaron, thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks.
So next on the agenda was an item that I spoke to Dr. Burgess about, and it's really more informational with some discussion as you see fit. But one of the things that I know has always been used by us, the school committee with the superintendent, to plan the year out is when certain things happen. And so I don't know if this has ever been given out to us, because I don't remember being given it to me, but I just thought it was more for sharing for all of you that sometimes something comes to mind in a meeting and you're thinking, are we going to talk about this or do that or this, whatever that may be. And this is kind of a very skeletal, I'd say, plan, a skeletal plan of where things might be planned to take place. The other reason I thought it was important for us is that if an item gets moved or doesn't have the background to take place in that meeting, and then it makes the meeting, it really lightens the meeting.
Yeah.
It's because it's not available. I wanted that to be open and to us is that this is the why. This is the why, that we were planning this report, that report, and this thing, but all those things did not happen or they're not there for us. And so I didn't want us to be surprised if we didn't have information. So I didn't know if there was any questions from anyone. I don't think this is by any means cast in stone for any reason at all, more just informational. And so, instead of having to wonder when the special education program's update is, you can say, oh, looks like it's in March, and so that's kind of the general plan. So I just thought we should share.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Roger, I think it's really helpful to look at it this way. And when I was going through it, I was trying to remember, I feel like maybe it was Brent, but last year when we did our vote on school choice, perhaps somebody said maybe that should be moved up.
Right.
I'd have to go back and look at the videotape.
It was.
But that was just my one thought when I was going through this list of something, an example of something that we had discussed changing, so.
Yep. And again, this is,
bring it to
it's
bear.
more for just, again, sharing, so
Right,
that we
right.
all can kind of be on the same page. We can all have a better understanding of what we're kind of looking ahead to.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to just throw that on there.
Oh, thank you for having Janet put that together.
Yep.
as well.
Next is a BICO quarterly update, which you all received in your packet as well, I think.
So the last meeting, we actually had the one from the summer, and so this is the September quarterly report from Jean Sullivan, who's the new executive director. So you'll see a number of the things here we kind of talked about with the school year starting very similar to ours with their 10 days of professional development. They began with 212 students, and they're continuing to receive referrals, and their numbers, I know, will continue to go up. They are implementing a new science curriculum. And as far as the year, that their inner workings, if you will, here is with Jean as being the new executive director, she goes through the kind of like the superintendents, because it's the equivalent essentially, and so doing an entry plan just like I did with you. So you can see here that she's going to be focusing on her process, her entry process, and the goals that are outlined there for her strategic plan, and then reviewing all internal kinds of communication with key people, and then also looking at, which is something that we're doing, so it's going to look very similar here, on discussion and collaborative practices to promote anti-racism and anti-bias rather than promoting inclusion. And continuing to monitor all of the changes that are going to take place with being in a pandemic and the very different year that we're all experiencing and the things that come along with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Any questions?
No, it's good.
Thank you all. Next is, we actually have two donations. We have this first one here that's listed on the agenda, and then we had a second one come in a little bit later as well. So I think it was all in your packet. It's an instrument donation, as you can see. And thank you, Tina, for donating a baritone to the music department.
It is my son Sam's very gently used baritone horn, and when I say gently, it is gently used because, well, with the larger brass instruments, it is helpful for the music department to have the instrument in the school building. So Sam would just take his mouthpiece back and forth, and he used the one that was there at the Ahern several years ago. It's probably been there. I think they wanted to replace it this year, and we had to axe that. So. And then he barely practiced the 4 years he played the horn, so it is gently used. But we'll be glad to clear the space out at our house. So thank you to the music department for everything they've done for the Bellinger family, and we're happy to make the donation.
Thank you very much. So motion to accept the donation of the baritone
Move to
horn.
accept the Bellinger family's very generous donation.
Brent, a second?
Second.
Second by Rob. Any further discussion on the baritone horn?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the donation?
I'm going to abstain because it just seems weird.
And abstention. So we have 4-0-1. Thank you for the baritone horn. And then I think the other donation is a soccer donation. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yep, for $2,000.
Thank you.
The way it's been set up within the district is that different sports booster groups can assist with additional either materials or even coaching staff but it has to run through the district. Obviously, we're the hiring and firing authority and obviously responsible for staff for queries and stuff like that. So we put that policy in place a number of years ago, and so very generously, the Foxborough Soccer Club has donated $2,000 to go towards a boys' assistant soccer coach to help support other coaches that we, as a district, also budget and hire and pay. So hopefully you would accept this $2,000.
I move to accept the donation from the Foxborough Soccer Association to support coaching the boys' soccer program at Foxborough High School.
I'll second.
Second? And just for the record, it's in the amount of $2,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it certainly will, any more discussion about the donation? All in favor? Thank you. And we will extend our thanks to the Foxborough Soccer Club as well. And for all those people that understand this, this is just a great opportunity and a generous gift by our town athletic associations, whichever one they may be, to extend our coaching, which just gives us a greater access for more staff working with our kids and reducing some of the sizes. So we have some in our budget, but we don't have, hundreds in our budget. Let's put it, well, we probably do, but we don't have, every team doesn't have multiple. So thank you. I think we've made it to the end of the meeting. Did I miss anything? Any other matters? Who would like to start? Dr. Burdish, you want to start?
Sure.
There you go.
So one of the things that I realized from the beginning, the teaching and learning highlight, I did not mention Brita Inishart, literacy specialist at the Ahern Middle School. That was the other voice that you heard who was instrumental in putting that video together. So Brita, I apologize because she does a phenomenal job at the middle school too. So anyway, just wanted to make sure I mentioned Brita there. One of the other things I wanted to mention, as you know, I serve on the Foxborough Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee. And so recently there's been a new website that has been developed to help prevent child sexual abuse, and it's safekidsthrive.org. And it was developed by the Massachusetts Legislative Task Force on the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse. It provides organizations with customizable tools and guidelines that you can go to prevent child sexual abuse. It's because, as we know, every single child and youth organization is different, and that website has the flexibility there to allow visitors to go and to visit and to find guidance and resources that would be appropriate for each of their organizations. And it's a beautiful website that's been developed with a lot of really good resources and tools. And so we're really, appreciative that continues to be a priority to be able to keep our children safe, and it's a website worth visiting.
Thank you. Safekidsthrive.org, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Others?
I'm planning to attend the MASC virtual conference on Saturday as our delegate, so
Thank you.
I will update the committee on any developments there at our next meeting, which is, are we meeting on the 17th or the 24th? Because I've actually seen both, I think.
24th.
It's the
24th.
24th, okay. I have to adjust my calendar.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's no problem. I did a little training. They did an online training on how to vote virtually, so I'm good to go for Saturday.
And our speaker for Saturday, too, you'll recognize Khalees Warnham as far as she was our speaker that we had, and she's the speaker for the conference.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
She's good.
that I'm looking forward to that as
She's
well.
good.
So, yeah, that's all I have.
Michelle, all set? Good? Tina, you had a question for me earlier.
I did.
Yeah, I thought so too. I didn't know if you wanted me to.
If you wouldn't mind putting your MIAA hat on for a second, Mr. Chair, could you give us a little update on the timeline for decision-making on winter athletics?
Yeah, I'm going to take the mask down just so I can speak a little clearer. So I certainly can do that. The first thing I would say is that the board of directors of the MIA that helps manage interscholastic athletics posts all their highlights on their website, MIA.net. So you can go right to their website. It's all public accessible.
That's
and look
great.
under board highlights for some of this information. Where we stand right now, we're approaching the end of the fall season, and what many of us know here in Foxborough as well as across the Commonwealth. And the next step is to prepare for winter season. You probably all know that the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, the EEA, you've probably heard that statement, the EEA has set the baseline for youth sports within the Commonwealth beginning this past spring, and we'll be continuing to do that. The EEA has to consider how the fall went, and then look forward to what they think the winter will look like and set that baseline. I think there's some expectation that they will have that baseline set maybe by the end of this week. Once the baseline is set for how youth sports should function going forward, if the baseline would change or be altered, then the MIAA can help act accordingly for modifications for sports for high school students. So if the EEA acts this week, then the MIA and their committees would be able to get together to look at what sports are available under the youth sports guidelines to take place in the winter, and then kind of work for those modifications and have them ready to start at the end of November. The Board of Directors met last week, and they did say that the winter season will start November 30th, which is Monday after Thanksgiving. The winter season will end on February 21st. That's the end of the winter season. There will be no tournaments in the state of Massachusetts sponsored by the MIA, been voted by their Board of Directors. This is all accessible on the website. Under board highlights. So that's kind of where it sits right now, and I suspect that leagues, I don't want to speak for the Hockomock League, I wouldn't do that, but I would suspect that leagues will have the opportunity to engage with each other and collaborate on how best to approach once all the modifications come out for whatever sports that are for the winter season.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing out there, there's a fall 2 season, the float season, which begins after February 21st at some point, and there's no decisions on those sports as far as I know yet. So right now, the sports, if you didn't know, be under consideration for winter are hockey, basketball, wrestling, swimming, which has already happened in the fall in some capacity, swimming again. Skiing is out there as a possibility, and gymnastics.
What about indoor track and field?
And indoor track. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the update. I appreciate it. I know there are a lot of interested parents and students out there, just wondering what's what, and now we know what, generally what the timeline is. We should have some understanding by our next school committee meeting then, is really what
I
you're
would
saying.
think, I would think there'd be some clarity around that time, and.
That'd be great.
As you just said, interested student in Foxborough, there's a lot of interested students in the Commonwealth.
Yeah,
So,
not just in
I-
Foxborough.
I think we've
Right.
said, we've talked about social emotional learning, we've talked about all the things
Yeah.
that make our kids tick, and sports is one of them.
Yes.
And I will add just one more thing, because I have exposure to other towns. I've been in numerous meetings, I just had a sports medicine meeting recently, and the one thing that has come back to me from athletic directors across the state is how great the students have been in participating with athletics. It's not normal, with all due respect, not throwing a soccer ball is off the mark, right? So that's tricky for soccer players.
Yeah.
But the students have been wonderful. They've just said, let's put our masks on, let's play, and let's get out where we want to be.
That's
And
good.
they've been great. So that's what I'm hearing. And I can only imagine that's true.
Follow-up to that, is there any looks or other supporting evidence that sports are also not super spreader events in that case? I mean, I only have the studies from the pros that are corollaries, and what I recall hearing from various studies that were done there was it's not the gameplay itself, it's how teams appropriately or inappropriately socialize. And I didn't know if MAA has any other information on that.
There's no study been done, but I can only answer anecdotally that the
Sure.
students that are participating in our schools are the same students that are going to our schools. So they're directly connected. So if there's no super spreading in schools in general, it's the same students that participate after school that have to be in school the next day. So I haven't heard of any rampant situations. I think there have been isolated incidents across the state where something might have happened on a specific team, and then they have to develop the close contacts accordingly in that same situation. So
But not
I don't think
necessarily
there's
linked to
anything
gameplay.
to send us into a challenge.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome.
I forgot to ask a question earlier to Dr. Burdos. For the students that are, and this perhaps, I don't remember the survey when I responded to it, but for the students that are fully remote and using one of our online platforms, have we had any feedback, or is that part of the survey and I don't want to give that away?
That's part of the survey, too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
So we'll be reporting out on that as well.
okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We did well. It's 8:40. We made, yes.
Move to adjourn?
Thank you, Brent.
I'll
Move
second
adjourned.
that.
Second by Tina. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye,
Thank you for being on board. Thanks, great to see you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.